Farewell to Manzanar, a true story of Japanese-American experience during and after the World War II internment, by Gene Wakatsuki Houston and James D. Houston. To truly understand the story of Manzanar, one needs to know the history of Japanese and American relations leading up to the World War II period. In 1854, Commander Matthew Perry landed in Japan with a fleet of American warships, forcing Japan to open up to trade and ending centuries of cultural isolation. The Meiji Restoration of 1868. The Japanese emperor and government, realizing that Japan had fallen behind the rest of the world in technology, began a program of industrialization and modernization of Japan's armed forces. By the late 19th century, Japan had emerged as a modern industrial state. Seeking resources for its expanding industrial output, Japan began to look towards establishing colonies in Asia, just as European countries had done for centuries. Japan repeatedly clashed with China, adding Taiwan, Korea, and Manchuria to her empire. Japan clashed with Russia in the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. The Russian defeat by the Japanese, a non-European power, stunned the world and cemented Japan's entry onto the world stage. In World War I, Japan sided with the Allied powers against Germany and the Central Powers, and is given a seat as an equal partner during the Paris Peace Conference in 1919. Japan argues to insert a racial equality clause to the Treaty of Versailles that would prevent nations from excluding immigrants based on race. The European powers resist this idea and placate the Japanese by granting them Germany's Chinese colonies of Shandong Province and the Marshall and Mariana Island chains in the Pacific. As Japan's empire grew, so did America's fear and apprehension about her intentions. Long-standing prejudices from the days of the Old West began to resurface in American society, and there was a fear of America being overrun by Asian immigrants, a yellow peril. The Immigration Act of 1924 established immigration quotas and prevented immigration by people who are not eligible to become naturalized citizens. This included Asians. Japanese immigrants in the decades leading up to World War II had established themselves into the fabric of American life. Gene Wakatsuki's father, Ko, immigrated in 1904. A member of the samurai class, his grandfather was the general who defeated the Russians in 1905. After working at several careers, he finally settled in Terminal Island in Long Beach, California, and established a profitable fishing business with his sons.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
In the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, American society becomes hostile to the Japanese. Racial stereotypes and hatreds permeate American media. President Roosevelt issues Executive Order 9066, which allows the military to exclude anyone of Japanese ancestry from the states of Washington, Oregon, and California. Those Japanese who did not have relatives or places to go in non-Western states were moved to internment camps, the most famous being Manzanar in the Owens Valley of California. Most internees lost everything except for the few meager possessions they could carry with them, treasured heirlooms, their businesses, their homes, their livelihoods. By September 1942, more than 10,000 Japanese Americans were crowded into 504 barracks organized into 36 blocks. The residents were unaccustomed to the harsh desert conditions, with 110-degree temperatures in the summer and below freezing in the winter. Gene's father, Ko Wakatsuki, was taken into military custody and interrogated on suspicions that he was supplying fuel oil to Japanese submarines. He would not rejoin his family at Manzanar for 9 months. Farewell to Manzanar is the chronicle of the Wakatsuki family's experience in the camp at Manzanar. It is most famous for its daily depictions of life in the camp. There was a grade school where every morning the children said the Pledge of Allegiance. There was a high school that put on plays, had sporting events with other high schools in the area, and had a yearbook. There was a town newspaper, the Manzanar Free Press. Almost all of the adults had jobs in the camps. There were factories, clerical jobs, hospital jobs, police, fire departments. Manzanar had churches, Boy Scout troops, and various sports teams, including a baseball team that played other teams around the Owens Valley. Volunteers from both inside and outside of the camp taught classes on any conceivable topic. Jean took classes in ballet, traditional Japanese dancing, and baton twirling. She even briefly attended the Catholic Church in Manzanar. These experiences served her well, and she was able to use them to blend back into American society and school when she returned from Manzanar. She constantly clashed with her father, who did not want her to become too Americanized. Her time at Manzanar also helped her to deal with the discrimination and humiliation she would face the rest of her life. Her experiences helped her to overcome the barriers of culture and racism, and she prospered in school, and was even elected to the queen of her high school carnival, a huge moment in her community. She was the first in her family to graduate college. At its heart, Farewell to Manzanar is the story of the changing worldviews of Jean's father Ko Wakatsuki and Jean herself. The story documents how Ko, humiliated, accused of disloyalty, and made to feel powerless to support his family, becomes a broken man. Unable to become a citizen, unwelcome in the land he had called home for 30 years, he is a man without a country. His Japanese and American identities are in constant conflict. He becomes an alcoholic and abusive towards his family. His experience is the experience of tens of thousands of Japanese Americans. It takes Ko years to recover from what happened at Manzanar, years before he finally moves his family to San Jose, California, and begins life again as a farmer. While reflecting on her father's difficulties and history, Jean states, "It helps me understand how Papa's life could end at a place like Manzanar. He didn't die there, but things finished for him there. Whereas for me, it was like a birthplace. The camp was where our lifelines intersected." Farewell to Manzanar concludes with a visit to the site of Manzanar in the 1970s, now consisting of crumbling concrete foundations and a handful of buildings. Jean has brought her husband, James Houston, the co-author of Farewell to Manzanar, and their 3 children. There was a current running through Jean's life that somehow she and her fellow Japanese Americans deserved what had happened to them. She confronted this feeling countless times as she faced discrimination while growing up. Now, standing in the ghost town of Manzanar, she confronts this feeling one last time and is able to defeat it once and for all. She is finally able to excise this feeling. She is finally able to say, "Farewell to Manzanar."